Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look this week at the astrological weather report for September 23rd through 29th. Not nearly as much as going on as last week. Wow, what a week, huh? That eclipse, that full moon sure seemed to have an effect on an awful lot of people. A lot of people telling me their stories and chat and the changes going on in their life and how they related to that. So a very powerful one. And remember, next week we get that solar eclipse at the new moon. So eclipse season's not over yet. But in between this week, we've got a week where Mercury is really busy this week and hits all three of the outer planets. And then it goes into Libra. So that's what I'm going to mainly be talking about. One other thing, a couple other things, and that'll be the main gist. But just to remind all of you, the Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I've been doing on YouTube for a number of years now. If you like what you see, I'd like you to become a follower. And if you have an account and you become a follower, don't forget to put your notifications on. And that way you'll get notified each week when the blog comes up. And remember, it was a podcast long before it was on YouTube channel. It's still available on podcasts. And I have to admit, the podcasts sometimes don't get up until a day or two later. I have a little bit of tricky internet sometimes where I live, so the podcast can drag behind. But they do free you to actually listen to it without being attached to a video screen, which, you can do that while you're doing your workout, driving around, whatever it may be. It's a frees you. It's also, if you have an Instagram account, there is an Astrological Winds channel page on Instagram. I do put the link every week in there. Sometimes some extra information on only for the Instagram followers during the week too, and that's always just in comment form. It doesn't commit you to any more audio or video. And then also Facebook, you have to private friend me, Matthew with two T's, Lawton, Lauten, and I do put it up on my Facebook every week, so it'll end up in your newsreel every Monday morning, and you can find it there. The best place, though, to always know where it is, if you don't have a YouTube account, is to go to my website, and that's www.astrologicalwinds.com. And I embed every week's right in the website. I also do an Earth and Sky calendar every week in there for Earth and Sky holiday stuff. So that's worth checking out too. Plus, that's where my menu is for all my professional services. And I would love to do your chart, or someone that you know that's looking for some kind of astrology service. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. Done many charts, trained in it for 7 years. Would love to do your chart. My services are all listed there. Can't hurt to email me, get in touch with me, start the process up, and I can work with you. And all kinds of services for groups there. If you're someone who's professional who wants monthly or weekly, daily stuff, get in touch with me. We'll talk about it. Okay, I really want everybody to remember, the other thing is, it is a free service I'm giving. I need you to pass the link along to somebody else when I'm done. And if you don't know astrology well, don't get lost on the astrological terms. Remember, you want to hear the interpretation in between. That's how you know what the energy is this week. Then you can work with it, get yourself self-empowered, have a much more smoother week than not knowing it. But don't get stuck on those terms if you don't understand what they are. And I appreciate everybody's following and comments and the likes and everything. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you all. Okay, so like I said, Mercury is the big player this week, and it's been something that I brought up the last few weeks, is that the three traditional outer planets, what I'll call traditional at this point, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are all at the very end of the signs they're in. So what does that mean? When a planet hits one of them, it's going to aspect all three of them, right? So that's what happens with Mercury this week. It's going to, tomorrow on Tuesday, it's going to trine Uranus. And then the very next day, it's going to oppose Neptune. And then it's going to trine Pluto. And then the very next day, because it's at the end of the signs, right, it's going to go off into Libra. So that's the main stuff I'm going to be talking about today. So Tuesday, tomorrow, we have Mercury trine Uranus. So tomorrow's Friday. Tuesday. Excuse is my live audience here. And so tomorrow, Mercury, which is the lower intellect, right, and the mind, will go into a harmonious trine with Uranus, which is the intuition, the higher mind. So this is a harmonious connection between the two of them. And there's a flow that goes on between the intellect and intuition. And what that means is we get a lot of super new downloads. We get a lot of new information that comes in. We get a lot of like stuff that stimulates the mind and excites it, and it takes it off. It's like creative intellectual activity. And what's really cool about this is it gives us like insights and perceptions on things that we haven't seen them from that angle before. You know what I mean? So like what's really helpful about that is that a lot of situations that might be blocked in our life, or we don't have an answer to, or we've been struggling to find an answer to, all of a sudden we're going to find those answers. We're going to see some new approach, a new angle of looking at that, and boom, it's just like all of a sudden, energy building up, and it reaches a brim point and it flows with the trine. It's like this flowing. It's like a waterfall flowing through, but it's a gentle, nice flow. So it really is a great time to like find new solutions to the problems that you may have been really churning on lately. Also a great time for increasing your knowledge base. Okay, like taking these two together, the two planets of the mind, your study, especially if you have anything that you need to learn that has to do with like technology or science or even mathematical type of stuff. That is like what you really can get a lot of. The mind is working like that right now. It's like working like a computer. Your mind's a supercomputer when Mercury is trine Uranus. It's working at its most acute best for you. So take advantage of that, right? The other thing is about it is that we can get connections with other people that are extreme. Like it might, it's kind of like walking into the supermarket and you meet someone that like has this really valuable piece of information to you, and it's like boom, lightning bolt to your head. And it's like, wow. And you give them that too. Like, it's like, wow, like we needed that piece of information, that piece of the puzzle, and it completes the circuit. It's like, boom, we get this great download out of it. So, also, just to mention that day, I don't mention it every week, but just because this week we don't have as much, Tuesday also is the fourth quarter square of the moon cycle. So we're in between the full moon of last week, that eclipse full moon, and the new moon coming up. And it's still the sun in Libra, still seeking out those relationships and that balance and wanting to go out and socialize. With the moons in Cancer, the emotional part is like, I want to stay home. I want to, or the family is calling me in. So there's like, and remember when the moon squares the sun, it's one of those times where, there's just multiple issues going on that day, too. It's not just one thing. It's like 3, 4, 5 things nagging at you. So it's like a day of little problems. It can kind of work you up. And it's one of those days where you just don't feel like things are going your way, which can frustrate you. And what it really is our emotions inside are out of balance with where our will is at on the outside. So we're creating things in our environment that are just these little things that represent that. That can many times come through relationships too. So you're going to have your family pulling you on one side and wanting to go out and socialize with friends, or, even new connections pulling you on the other side. So that's probably where you're going to see a lot of this energy. Now, when we are feeling good, and we are in balance, we just have a lot of emotional conviction behind what we're doing, which can really give us a lot of energy and really can get us to push ahead. And even when we're out of balance, we still have that emotional conviction. We just end up getting in conflict with others instead, or with ourselves. So, the conviction's there either way. But if you can find a balance between those two, lots of energy, lots can get done. So then the very next day, Mercury does its annual opposition to Neptune. Okay. So right from this really acute mind feeling of Monday and Tuesday, we go into a time where it can get really confusing, especially to the logical, practical side of the mind. This is a day when we're going to spend a lot of our time in the right brain, in the creative place where we can really tap in. The problem is we're out of touch with reality, and so it's not a good day to make agreements or decisions that have a lot to do with practical world matters, because it's going to be off. There's going to either be information you didn't have, or just poor decision making because it's not based in reality. It's more based in an idealistic way of dealing with things. So it's just a day where we can access a part of our mind where, once again, we can be very perceptive and spiritual and get a lot of connection like that in the inner mind. So like what I really think it's really good for is going inside yourself and getting in touch with your spiritual, mystical side, or your artistic side with words. Like this is like a day of like storytelling, reading about myths, or creating poetry, rapping, writing, creative writing, things like that, things you can do by yourself. It's hard in relationships because there can just be a lot of misunderstandings and confusion in our communication. So it's hard there. The other thing that's a little bit funny about this one is that it can lead to like a nervous exhaustion kind of energy, but yet it's still kind of hard to relax. So it's a funny kind of energy because the mind is still kind of really stimulated, but it's got like this like kind of wearing out feeling. But when you lay down, your mind just keeps going. It's like, okay, I can't turn this thing off right now. And then later in the day, Mercury trines Pluto. So that's going to start to focus stuff back in. And I think we can really work well with these three energies together, despite the Neptune, confusion maybe in the middle. Maybe we get the stimulated idea from Mercury, Uranus, and then it really makes our imagination take off in the middle of the week, and we might get a little bit out in fairyland with it a little bit. But then Pluto comes back in like a magnifying glass or a microscope, and it starts to like crystallize our vision with what we really feel we need to go into depth with. And so it really gives us like almost like an obsessive mind where we can really focus in like a laser on the information that we get out of Uranus and Neptune with Mercury, and then start to really do the research and investigation type of work to get to the bottom of things. We'll be really into it, whatever it like that stimulates. We're gonna be like, yeah, I'm really want to take a dive into this thing and take it down to the depths and see the why. Why is this happening? Not just like, don't just show me how, but like, I want to know why, So this is like, it can really be good once again too for doing like, work on your own psyche, on your own psychology, like getting therapy even, or just being your own self-analysis. We can see what is driving the mind. The subconscious drives of our own mind can be like perceived by ourselves, and we can get to the very bottom of those things. And we can see that in other people too. That's another thing where we can really perceive where other people's thoughts are coming from. And it gives us this very inspiring mind. And then, just to mention this too, and I'm not going to go really deep into this because I already did twice this year. And if you're a new follower and you missed it, then you need to go back to the monthly on my website, or the annual blog on the website that I did back in January. That one of the two biggest aspects really of the year between outer planets is exact for the second time this week. And that is retrograde Saturn. Right now, Saturn's retrograde is going to semi-square Pluto, which is also retrograde. So this is the second of three hits. It's going on all year. And as I mention a lot about it in the monthly and annual, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it again, but what I said in a nutshell, the old guard, remember, society, this has a lot more to do with society than our individual lives, these ones. The old guard still trying to use their old ways of controlling things, where the world is falling apart, the structures are falling apart all around us, both physical and the ideas, and they're going through transformation. And when people are still trying to hold on to doing things the old way, what does that equal? Frustration, the semi square. So we're right in the middle of it, which is so telling for the US election, too. Both sides so frustrated with the other side. So in your personal life, if you have any issues that, represent that structure falling apart around you, that's obvious, the cracks are like, getting big, it's time to like start working on transforming them, because the building's going to fall down, right? So this is more of a societal one, but go back to the monthly and annual, and there's a lot more on it there. I'm going to stop on that now and go back into Mercury's fleet-footedness, and the winged one goes into Libra the very next day on Thursday. And so when Mercury goes into Libra, decision making slows down. Okay. It's going to weigh everything before it makes a decision, which is great, actually. It doesn't fit in with the pace of modern life where everybody wants an answer right away, but we can get the right answer when we get all the information before we make a decision. Now, the problem is if you take it too far, you come across as indecisive. And that obviously, want to get it to that point. But, very like, once again, and the other strength of Mercury and Libra is that it puts out a diplomat type archetype. So it's very good for like even politicians or whatever, people sitting down to make compromises and agreements where everybody walks away from the table feeling good. Okay. Like it's more interested in having peace between people and that kind of thing. So I'm very, it slows down the mind, but it's slowing it down so that it's being sure that, it has all the information it needs before it makes a decision, and that it's the correct manners too, that you're not like rolling someone with your decision making process, and that there's someone feeling kind of like left out, like that they didn't get like a good part of the agreement that everybody else got. The last thing I want to mention this week is on Sunday, and that is Mars trine Saturn. And Mars trine Saturn is a great, great aspect to work very slowly on a project, like the next step in your project. We're not married to thinking we need the final result when Mars is trine Saturn. And we're very exacting too with our work. So we're excellent workers. In fact, we make really good impressions on our superiors when Mars is trine Saturn, because we can get very detailed about our work, very meticulous, very like a lot of consciousness in our actions is a good way to say it. So if you have any projects going on, it's a great day to do the next step, whatever it may be. And what's good about Mars Saturn too is it doesn't have to be even something exciting, like even something tedious that we have to do is okay. It's something that we're okay with doing. We have the attitude of the ability to sacrifice like what would be pure pleasure for just wanting to like make some progress in some project that we're doing. And not only that, we're very skillful in what we're doing too. Like our talents really come out. It's once again another time really working well with our hands and tools and bodies. And it's a Sunday, so if you're not working, like it's the energy. If it was a sport, it would be the energy of jogging. It would be the energy of taking a hike or climbing a mountain slowly, not crazy climbing up a cliffside of Yosemite. I'm talking about like, a slow incline, it's that kind of energy. So if you want, if you have Sunday off and, you want to get involved in something physical, that would be the kind of energy that you'd be wanting to like, tie into, something that's a, slow progress, not like a lot of quick, fast action. You want to kind of be like more like a step-by-step thing. All right. Well, that's what I got for this week. I know next week, right, we've got the next eclipse. So that's going to be the new moon in Libra. And I also know next week we're going into October. So I will be looking into the monthly next week too, and what the general trends of October will be on the outer planets. I do know next week, too, right at the beginning of the week, we have the third conjunction, the superior conjunction of the Sun and Mercury, and it's going to be right on the South Node. So that should be interesting, too. So a lot to talk about next week already. But anyway, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free service. You're about to pass it on to someone else. And I thank you so much for doing that for my free service. And when you need professional services, you're going to go to my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. You can check out the menu there, all the services I have. If you haven't had your birth chart done yet, please, please, please make sure you get that done by me or somebody professionally, and get yourself self-empowered about your life. It never leaves you. It's not like that pair of pants that you buy for $150. It's going to wear out someday, like it's going to always you're always going to be wearing it, so start there. And, if you've already had that service done, I highly recommend getting your predictive reading done every year around your birthday for a year, so you know how the sky is affecting you this year and be self-empowered again, right? That's what it's all about. All right, you guys, I thank you all so much. If you'd like to give a donation to the blog, it does cost me a little bit of money to put it out. My Venmo handle is the symbol @ and then Matthew with 2 T's, capital M, hyphen in the middle, and then it's capital LAUTEN. So it's @ Matthew Lawton. Cash App, same thing. It's just the $ in the beginning and then no hyphen in the middle, just Matthew Lawton. So any $5 you give enters you into a chance to win a free reading. So, that's a chance to maybe get a reading at like way, way lower than you'd normally be paying it. Okay. So I will see you all next week. We'll look at that new moon in Libra and we'll look at October together. Thanks for all the support. I appreciate you all so much.